Hello YouTube, and welcome back to another video in the series Zork University, where I try to make you smarter in the context of Elder Scrolls lore. Today we're talking about biodiversity in the Elder Scrolls. Let me clarify, not because I want to do this subject, I absolutely don't, but because I made a promise in a comment under my genetics video to do this video after it, and then people just kept reminding me of the promise I made, so lesson learned, I will never promise a video again. Before we begin though, I was asked by my friend on Discord, Mr. Dovasaurus, to share with you two polls on Imperials and Stormcloaks. Which side do you support? Let him know in the polls below in the description. There is one for Imperials and one for Stormcloaks, and I would really appreciate it if you could fill out those polls for him. It's not that much time consuming. With that said, let's get right into the video, and I cannot really promise that this video will satisfy everyone, but I'm gonna try. It's impossible, trust me. So when I promised, next time we will cover the biodiversity, lol, I had no idea what to say about biodiversity in the Elder Scrolls, and it was basically a joke. But since I told you that I would do it, and people reminded me, here we go. We will talk about the importance of biodiversity in the Elder Scrolls universe, and we will do it in the simple context of this Horker. Let's call him Doug. Doug is just a simple creature. He eats, he sleeps, and he sometimes attacks travelers that come too close to him and his family. The reason Doug can do all this is because of biodiversity. The literal meaning of biodiversity is that there is diversity in the biome in terms of plants, grounds and animals. You see, Doug would be pretty screwed if there was no biodiversity, because without biodiversity it would mean that there would only be one type of thing in the entire biome, basically all the Horkers. So basically the only kind of organism in existence would be the Horker. So Doug would not be able to eat anything unless he started eating other Horkers, but then eventually the species would go extinct. That is not ideal. So you need biodiversity, you need plants, you need other animals, you need water, you need seaweed, you need fish and so on. That's biodiversity. The only thing that biodiversity means is literally you have diversity in the things you see in your biome, in the species in your biome as well. So that would be a pretty short video, and I realize that. So what else can we say about biodiversity on Tamriel other than that it's necessary for all species to survive? Well, the term biodiversity is actually pretty broad. The term contains more info than you would think for one word. When you're speaking of the concept biodiversity on Tamriel, you are talking about basically the number of species on Tamriel, including animals, plants, insects and all the playable races, the ecosystems existent on Tamriel, and the diversity in genes on Tamriel. I'm not going to talk about the diversity in genes because, well, let's be honest, I did a video on that already, and that video led to the making of this video, something I didn't want, so I'm gonna do it again. So if we're applying this to the Elder Scrolls universe, then it's just really hard, and basically you're just demanding too much from me, and this is just impossible to do, and I won't do it. It's simply too much work for me, and I don't care that I promised it. Bye.
Come on, Zork.
What do you want?
You promised to do this video, mate.
I don't want it.
Come on, you can do it. Don't betray us.
Fine. So, covering all species on Tamriel and all ecosystems is kind of a hassle and way too much work, and something that won't lead to anything conclusive in the end. So, let's do this on a bit of a smaller scale. Let's take one ecosystem on Tamriel and observe the biodiversity on that ecosystem. Then we get one ecosystem's data and just roll with that for the biodiversity part. So, what's an ecosystem and where do we find one? An ecosystem. So basically the most basic definition of an ecosystem is a system or group of interconnected elements formed by interaction of a community of organisms within their environment and with their environment. So basically it's the way how plants, animals, nature, so ground, weather, etc. interact with each other. Every factor in a certain area. You have open and closed ecosystems. The one and only natural occurring closed ecosystem that we have is the Earth itself. It has no influence from the outside of its own ecosystem, so everything that happens on Earth is caused by something on Earth. Nothing from the outside can taint it, excluding meteors of course, but let's just keep that out of this equation. Other closed ecosystems are ecosystems created by humanity for research in spaces that are especially designed not to have any outside influences. An open ecosystem is the opposite of that. An open ecosystem is basically any ecosystem on Earth. For example, an island far offshore has its own little ecosystem, but can still be influenced by the weather from other ecosystems. Or poisoned water from the mainland with oil in it, or even poison in the air or whatever. Basically, any ecosystem that can be influenced by other ecosystems are open ecosystems. So, now that you know what ecosystems are, what's the deal with all the people talking about disturbance of ecosystems? Because that's the term you'll hear most associated with ecosystems whenever you hear it on the news or anywhere else. You might have heard on the news sometimes that we humans are disturbing ecosystems. What is meant by that is that we humans take away an essential piece from the circle of life in an ecosystem. Since the perfect ecosystem could sustain itself indefinitely, it would mean that you would need to disturb that to not having it sustain itself. So, how would you go about disturbing an ecosystem? Please don't do this, I don't want to be held responsible for like ecosystem crashes. Well, for example by overfishing. Take all the fish away from the sea and the fish would disappear. It would mean that, well, the thing that the fish eats, for example plankton, I know it's more complicated, but we're keeping it simple here, would spiral completely out of control because nobody eats the plankton, and they would basically taint the entire sea. And they would then go on to dominate the entire sea. And the penguins that eat the fish would basically all die because there's no fish left to eat, so they starve. So you have disrupted the entire ecosystem by taking away one component of it, the fish. This is an overly simple explanation, but it's basically what you need to understand for this video. So, let's take for example Solstheim. It's an island, probably the most well-known island of the Elder Scrolls. And it's an island off the coast, however, it's close enough to land that birds can still get there from the mainland. So it would immediately be an open ecosystem, one that, well, can pretty easily be disturbed even. We know that Solstheim used to be a pretty wooded area, at least the southern half. But after the eruption of Red Mountain, all that's left are basically ashlands. Plants die because of the ash, because there's no plants left, herbivores die, because of the herbivores die, the carnivores will die, and basically you will end up with the wasteland that Southern Solstheim now is. Not many animals live there at all at this point. Most life is in the north, and what animals are encountered in the south are either made for the life in the ashlands, like the netch or the ashhoppers, or, well, maybe came from the north, but you don't really see much animals there. So, to make the jump back to biodiversity, the diversity in species was really changed radically. The southern half of the island used to be a host to a lot of bears and other animals, and it used to be the more diverse part of the island, but all the bears that used to be on Southern Solstheim are now either in the north or, well, dead since the Red Mountain's eruption. There used to be a lot of trees now, however, now it's mainly burned trees and no really living trees. You see what I mean? The diversity in species on the southern half of the island was pretty much reduced on the south, and presumably also in the north after this calamity. So this is very much an open ecosystem, as a closed ecosystem would not be influenced by any outside factors. So, other than the biosphere of Nirn, do we have any closed ecosystems on Tamriel that I can analyze? Because, well, closed ecosystems are easier to analyze than open ecosystems. Well, no, not really. We don't really have any true closed ecosystems. However, we do have something that is in fact pretty close to a closed ecosystem. I'm talking about Blackreach. Now, Blackreach is completely closed off from the outside. The only thing that it can be influenced by from the outside are the water that apparently flows in the form from underground rivers that come from Tamriel, which at some point probably came from another ecosystem. And you have the Falmer in Blackreach, which are becoming more intelligent and start building stuff. You see, because the Falmer are intelligent, they will eventually start developing themselves beyond their regular state of just being another creature. They will start building stuff and eventually disrupt the ecosystem of Blackreach. So far that hasn't really happened all that much. They occupied some of the Dwemer structures and they have some camps, but that does not really interrupt the ecosystem. I mean, to our knowledge, they have not built something like a dam to obstruct a river or hunt each and every lost creature of a species down. they have left the ecosystem largely intact. So, what about the biodiversity of Blackreach? Well, this is a bit tricky, since, well, not everything that is in Blackreach is in Blackreach, if you understand my meaning. For example, in lore there are probably loads of underground insects in Blackreach that simply, well, they are not added into the game. For example, worms in the ground. You will not see them in the game because it's basically useless to put them in the game, but they're definitely there in lore. So, really I have to conclude that, well, I cannot really make a sum up of the entire biodiversity in a place in the Elder Scrolls because of this concept that you just cannot add everything that there is into the game. And that kind of bums me out, as I really wanted to do this video right, if I'm gonna do it. I spent a lot of time on it and I analyzed a lot of places for the animals that were there, and it's well really just not possible to really reconstruct an entire ecosystem and identify every single species, simply because we don't have all the info, because not everything that is there in lore is also in the games. I mean, if anything, the entire Blackreach ecosystem couldn't even exist if it existed like it exists in the games. The only type of creature that we can find in Blackreach are basically carnivores, aka eaters of meat. There's no way that the frost trolls, frostbite spiders, chaurus and falmer somehow all exist without any herbivores around. There has to be something that they can eat around, right? The only ones that might not only eat meat are the falmer, but well, how then do they feed their chauruses? We know that they might eat chaurus eggs, but how do the chauruses get fed? They don't throw fellow farmers in there, and well, the humans in Blackreach are really very rare to come by, and they use the humans as slaves and not as food when they find them. How do the trolls and the spiders eat that we see in Blackreach? Maybe they eat the giants of Blackreach. There's one giant around, maybe there were more, maybe they were all eaten, but then what do the giants eat? We know that the fungus in Blackreach is very poisonous, and well, it's not ideal if you eat that. There aren't really any eatable plants as far as we know in Blackreach. Well, there might be some kind of sort of leaf that you can eat, but still then, there is no way you can reconstruct the entire ecosystem of Blackreach simply because not all the animals that are there in lore are also there in the game. Bottom line is, Elder Scrolls lore is detailed. Just not this detailed, and I'm actually very sorry that it isn't this detailed, because once I started doing this video I really wanted to do it right, but I really came to the conclusion that I can't. I really examined a lot of places. I examined Stros Mackay, I examined Auradon, I examined the Imperial City Island even if that's the most disrupted ecosystem you will ever find. I looked a lot into ecosystems that I could find in the Elder Scrolls universe, but none were closed, and the ones that came closed, like Blackreach, well, they just made no sense at all, in my opinion. You might differ from that opinion. Well, at least with what we have when we look into the game. It might be different in lore, but then we just don't have the sources for it, and that really bums me out. So, I'm sorry, this is actually my first failed video, but I did so much work on it that I at least wanted to take you through my thought process. Yeah, this is not like a regular lore video, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. If you enjoyed it, give me a like, give me a subscribe. Also click that bell icon, because YouTube no longer pushes the video to subscribers. You have to do the bell icon. So, sorry, I have to ask for that too now. If you want to support me in a more personal way, there's my Patreon. And if you want to go in personal contact with me, there is my Instagram and Discord in the description. Also in the description are the polls by Mr. Dolphosaurus. Don't forget to fill them out. I will see you all in the next actual lore video. And yeah, I will see you later. Bye bye.